I bought this roll of CineStill 400D in Adelaide, South Australia in October 2022. I was a few months into my post-undergrad travels that took me farther away from home than I'd ever been before. Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Australia. I carried this roll around with me everywhere I went, but for some reason, it took me half a year to finish shooting it. By the time I reached the 36th frame, I was already home and on the verge of leaving again. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. I loaded the roll into my Yashica FX3 in Miyajima, an island in Japan. I wasn't actually planning to, but I saw this shot after blowing through my last roll of Portra and I couldn't pass it up. It was a sight I wanted to remember, standing there alone in the early morning light, a foreigner with the high ground, in awe that I'd actually made it to the country I'd dreamed about since I was a lonely kid stealing my neighbor's Wi-Fi to stream the latest episode of Shippuden. I never got better at making friends, but I did finally figure out how to be okay on my own, because as it turns out, I was never alone. Even as a solo traveler, I always had a place to return to, with people waiting for me to come home, even if those homes were only temporary, like Cambodia, where I lived for 6 months, as a graduation gift for a kid with a journalism degree and no job offers, a round-trip ticket to the motherland I'd only heard about from my mother and my father, who would always tell us about the genocide, how we barely survived the regime. I wondered how he would feel if he ever returned to a Cambodia, where the bloodstains have been buried by time, technological advancement, and riches that are disproportionately dispersed in the hands of few who rely on the many with too little to maintain their lifestyles. I wondered if I had any right to judge. As much as I tried to experience the ebbs and flows of normal life, exploring Phnom Penh in tuk-tuks, dodging traffic at outdoor markets with smells most tourists couldn't stomach, eating food in the streets with no AC, at the end of every sweaty day, I laid my head down to rest in a gated community that if not for my family, I'd be too broke to even walk in. I was raised on the quiet streets of Southside Milwaukee, where the snow greeted me upon my return at the start of the new year, the cold just one of the many things that never changes around these parts. It took my sun-kissed skin no time to adapt to the bitter frost in the air that always burned my lungs as a kid as I tried to help my parents shovel. The flakes kept falling until the end of April, with warmth teasing us in between showers, allowing my mother's lilacs enough time to bloom, only to freeze their flowers, a bitter reminder that our lives are not so different. In this city where nothing ever happens, and we mark the passage of time by counting the for sale signs, plastered on the lawns of neighbors who are moving on, and hastily placed on the shuttered doors of businesses that have been around for as long as we can remember. Sometimes I get so caught up in the good old days, I blink, and suddenly we're all grown up. My uncle's puppy, who was once small enough to carry, now big enough to drag you down the street. My father, who used to carry me and my sister with ease, now a stone's throw away from 60. I'm trying to hold on to what's left, without letting my fear of change stop me from embracing what's to come. The tomorrows that will bring us one step closer to the end, delivering pain and joy in the places we least expect, like the basketball courts that sat empty for years, that finally have backboards and rims that my cousin, who's getting to be as tall as me, can't swish on. I guess we're birds of a feather, or two ships floating at sea, bound for the same destination but charting different courses, desperate to leave but terrified to say goodbye for what could very well be the last time. The sun is setting on both of our childhoods. When we feel its warmth again, we'll be long gone, and I'll be looking at these photographs, wondering where the time went.